now, your main event. Introducing the hosts of Wrestling with Freddie, Jeff Dye, and Freddie Prinze Jr.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Freddie. Jeff Dye is on location and unavailable, but we didn't leave you hanging because today we have a very special guest. And I'll start with this. One thing that every wrestling fan has caught themselves saying is while they're watching a match and they see something and they go, "Oh my God, how did you miss that call? Oh my God, how were you not in the right place? Oh my God, turn around and look at what you're missing right now." Today, we have brought a very special referee. We have brought Mr. Daniel Spencer, and just so you know a little history on the man, and you understand his expert opinion, and I'll soon be educated, and he can choose to defend his profession if he so wishes. He is a senior official at OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, for those of you who don't know and just listen for fun, since 2019. And in 2020, made his debut refereeing in Impact Wrestling, which is a part of the Premier Streaming Network. So sign up for that, and you can watch Impact there if you're a cable cutter like most of us. Mr. Daniel Spencer, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Nice intro there. I couldn't do it better myself. So.
Thanks, man. I have met many a referee. I have had many a late night conversations with a referee. But when I worked in WWE, they were more interested in asking questions than answering questions. And I've never gotten to ask this question to a ref before. How the hell do you become a referee? And what made you say, that's what I'm going to do?
You know, it's really, I got a unique story. Growing up a wrestling fan, I always wanted to be a part of wrestling. Never really thought about refereeing. I mean, there was the GOAT referees, right? Your Charles Robinsons, your Earl Hebners. And it was like, those guys are cool, but it was never a thing. I always wanted to be a wrestler. At the time, I was, I'm 5'11", so I'm like, too short. Nowadays it doesn't matter, but in the early 2000s, it was a big deal.
That was tough.
And so, it was tough. So I just kind of thought, well, maybe I'll be a writer and be creative and all that kind of stuff. So I'll maybe go to that route in wrestling. But, life got away, never really did. I started a podcast to talk about wrestling. My love for wrestling was, I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky. So growing up around OVW, I had a lot of friends at OVW. So I would bring those guys on and interview and stuff like that. And somebody brought on, we were doing a benefit show. And I literally brought them on and was like, talking about the benefit show. And I jokingly said, "Hey, if you ever need a special guest referee, I'm your man." And they were like, yeah, sure. Come on. And we got them recording. I thought it was just podcast banter, just having fun. And they were like, "No, I'm serious. Come on out." So I did. And I got in the ring. And from the very beginning, I loved it. And everybody there could, not to brag, but they were just shocked that was my very first show, because I knew I had the mechanics down. I kind of knew things. I wasn't perfect, obviously, but I knew enough I could do this further. And then more connections from there just snowballed into more. And I started doing training, started, doing more shows. And before I know it, then go to OVW and start learning TV. And then from then got to now Impact Wrestling. So it was a pretty fast, jump, but pretty cool at the same time.
You said training. Is there a referee school that you go to, or do you just get in with a certain promotion and then learn the ropes within the promotion?
You want to do your basic training when it comes to wrestling type stuff. You're taking bumps and ropes and things like that. As far as, there should be a school refereeing. I have done seminars and been part of stuff to help train the referee side, because really in a wrestling school, unfortunately, they don't really teach refereeing. They just, you just stand here or be here. It's more of get out of the way, man. Or they should 100%. They should teach refereeing. And we do that a lot at OVW at the school there. And like I said, there's seminars and whatnot that I've been a part of where I've helped, teach. But I think it's important for wrestlers to learn the art of refereeing, because, a lot of those wrestlers I've talked to that I've worked with, they're literally like, when they learn something, they go, "I never understood that the importance of you being in this position or you doing that." And it kind of opens up their eyes. So I really think there should be, and like I said, we bring it in OVW, we make a certain, couple weeks where it's like referee, you got to kind of learn the importance of a referee because it's going to help them be a better wrestler. And then if they want to be a referee, some do transition over to referee, and there's a lot of former workers that are now referees too as well. So it happens.
That's a very insightful thing you said, that all wrestlers should learn the art of refereeing. I've always found that every director who also went to acting class and learned the craft of that, whether they were any good at it or not, but learned to speak that language, they were always 10 times the directors who didn't have that experience every single time. So it's a great way just to sort of train your brain anyway. It's like when psychiatrists tell you to brush your teeth with your opposite hand, right? Because it activates a different part of your brain. And that's why you feel like a 3-year-old trying to find your mouth with a fork when you do it, when you brush with the opposite hand. But when you take in, it's like every man, what was that show? The Secret Boss show. I don't know what it was called. Hidden Boss, something. Where
Undercover Boss.
Thank you. Undercover Boss. Much better title than mine. They would sort of see the other half of the business, and it's important for the foreman to know what every machine does on the construction site and to know how to operate every machine. That should be how they got to the foreman position, because they had enough experience to do all that. When you add those extra tools to your belt, it only makes you better. And you're right as well. A lot of guys that wanted to be wrestlers, and girls, have transitioned into the referee world, and they're all doing a good job, except when they miss calls, which happens.
It does happen, unfortunately. We only have 2 set of eyes. I wish there was other ways around it, but the industry's evolved so much, but we still got the one referee in the ring, and there's no TV review unless it's important. Sometimes there are reviews and, we get things overturned, but for the most part, things happen and we miss stuff. I was going to say, people that are, I would say like he's not here today, but like a Jeff Dye, like he's a manager, right? Kind of, I don't see him as a wrestler, see him like a manager. He's one of those that likes to just get up on top of the apron and you're like, dude, what are you doing? You got to get down. And then something happens behind me and I have no idea what's going on. So
he could be a good distraction. Yeah. I'll get into some constructive criticism down the road, but a lot of my listeners just listen for fun and they're not educated on wrestling. And they tell me they learn a lot about it just through listening to this, whether they watch or not. I need you to break down and explain what a referee's responsibilities are as comfortably as you can to people that have never, because it's not like boxing or the UFC in any way, shape, or form. You're not just observing and officiating. There is a next level of communication that has to exist that I want people to understand. So try and illustrate that for me if you could.
Yeah. So there's a lot. And I know the curtain's been pulled back so much in this industry now. So I'm not really going to give away too much that kind of it's not out there. And you've seen it in other stuff too as well. But one of the things obviously number one, our job is always safety. It's safety for the talent in the ring, making sure they're everything's good. Even when they take a big bump and they're selling, to make sure that the selling is selling the right way. And it's not like, oh, we need to stop this match and move on. Yeah. Where 20 years ago, it was like, they just continued, we luckily enough to know so much about the concussions and different things when it comes to the body that we're able to kind of stop when we need to stop, or, finish a match right away when we need to finish it. But the other things too, is that especially when you're working with TV, we have IFBs, we have earpieces in our ear, and we're being communicated from, the agent in the back or the TV truck, and different, people letting us know where things are time-wise, what's going on, if we, if we're in the camera shot, things like that too as well, we've got to do. And time cues, there might be time cues said as well. But the other thing too is that, you're communicating back and forth between the talent in the ring. I mean, a lot of times you have to let people know let each other know what's going on, for the most part. And I'll just leave it at that. I won't go too much detail in it, although again, the curtain's been pulled back so much that people kind of understand.
Yeah, I never push, bro. It's only what you're comfortable saying.
It's a very important job. And we are not, the joke around is that referees don't sell tickets, we comp tickets, right? So it's like
Never
they're not
heard
there.
that.
Never heard that? No, really?
No.
Yeah. We don't sell them, we comp them. So I mean, there's,
That's
they're
great,
not.
man.
And what that means is they're not there to see us. They're there to see the talent in the ring. So our job is to kind of be there when we need to be there, but be unseen when we need to be unseen, which is usually 90% of the time we need to be unseen. So that's kind of the other hard part of the job, is not taking the glory from, because it's not about us, it's about the talent in the ring, whether there's two, 4, 5, whatever, how many of them's in the ring.
I knew a wrestler who will remain nameless that had a hard time remembering spots in matches outside of the big ones. And so when he would build a match with his opponent, he would always ask that the referee for that match be there as well, so that he could communicate anything that he may have forgotten in the match. And this wrestler, I already said he, so they'll know it's he, but he depended on this referee so much, and they had such an amazing relationship that it was like a shorthand with like hand signals, little things like that would just cue him into everything that he may or may not have forgotten. Like he would go through those motions whether the guy forgot or not, so it just looked like normal behavior. But that was how he remembered a lot of the important spots in matches, because this was a guy that would get big time promos and have, to carry segments and things like that. And so he had so much crap going on in his head that he'd be like, I just forget spots sometimes. And, if I'm with a guy that doesn't want to improv and we have specific things, I got to be there for him. Has anything like that ever happened with you where you have to help out with certain, like, hey guys, let's get here, let's get there, those types of things?
Yeah. Quite often, actually. It's not a knock on the talent who it is, because it's so much to remember. And what's crazy about it, here's like, I've got to know 4 or 5 matches the whole night. So like, I've literally got to help memorize. I mean, if it's a bigger match, I definitely know all the details, but I've got to I've got to go over this more than once, because this is important. But no, many times I've had to be in the ring and they say where they're at, where are we at, and I have to let them know where they're at, and it's that's just communicating the right way, and making sure, because worst case scenario, if they're lost and they do something that can cause them to get injured too as well, because they thought something else was coming and something else came instead, and it knocked them sideways, so it's very important. But yeah, that's a very common. There's one of the guys who was my mentor and kind of took me to I call it another level in wrestling, coached me, was Brian Hebner, who's the son of Earl Hebner. So Brian kind of took me under his tutelage for about 18 months when he was back with Impact. And I learned so much about how to do that, because he was like that for Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, he says, I had to do all of Kurt Angle's matches because I literally helped him the entire time. And he instilled that with me. Know your matches, have a relationship with your talent, so that way you can, communicate so well with them, because they're going to. And
Kurt's 100%. One of the greatest to ever wrestle. One of the greatest ever wrestle, and still to have that relationship with your referee is such an amazing thing. And I know the curtain has been pulled back, but I think that's one of the beautiful things about the business is the fact that, as unsung as the referees are, as far as heroes, y'all are happy with that. You prefer that. I've heard you multiple times talk about not being seen or noticed, and multiple times talk about wrestler safety. And that's what you sort of pulled every conversation back to. And I think that's the way all referees should be in all sports. By the way, all you referees out there that make it about you, that's some BS. And that happens in the NBA all the time. you need to have a seminar for them. All right, so more fun question. And maybe it's a two-parter, maybe it's the same answer for both. What's the most nervous you've been for a match, and what was your first championship match? Who was in it? What was it? Were you nervous? Is it holy shit, I don't want to screw up? Or are you like, oh, it's my moment, I'm going to shine? Like, I honestly want to know. It can be cocky. It's not cocky if you did it. My grandfather would always say, it ain't bragging if you did it, Freddie. I'd be like, all right, fair enough.
I would say probably the most nervous I've ever been Obviously, that I guess you go back to that first show ever, but that was nothing in front of like 100 people, whatever. But the most numbers I've been was doing the semi-main event for the Ric Flair's last match show. It was for the Impact Knockouts World Championship. It was Jordan Grace against Deonna Purrazzo and Rachel Ellering. So it was that match, and very nervous because it was Ric Flair's last match, and over 10,000 people in the crowd, and it was seen everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, it was pretty amazing. But then Rachel also tweaked her knee in the middle of this match, like right when it started. So like there was the whole safety thing going on there, and I'm trying to communicate that to the back and also get them to get the other two to still wrestle. And it was nerve. That was probably the most nervous I've been in the most recent years I can think of. As far as a first ever title match, it was actually OVW versus Impact, which is where my first relationship with Impact came in. It was in March of 2019, and it was Tony Gunn versus Sami Callihan, and it was like the OVW championship because Sami Callihan stole it from Tony Gunn, who was the champion. And there was that, and so that was probably my first memorable one that I don't. And I'm looking back, I don't believe that any other one was. I had any other ones that were bigger than that until I went to Impact and then did my first world title match with Eddie Edwards versus RVD, and that was fun too as well. That was pretty memorable as well. So.
All right, Daniel Spencer, it's time.
It's
time to introduce a brand new segment on Wrestling with Freddie, a segment I like to call, I got some sweet sound effects for this too, Ref Court. Dun, dun, dun. Those were the sweet sound effects.
That was impressive.
All right, man. So I started watching wrestling in the early 80s, and I'm 47 years old now. I got a lot of ref gripes. Some are just, some after talking to you, not so much, because you're right. There are a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
However, and we won't be able to do it every week, although I'd love to have you on every week, but Jeff will get jealous. Once in a while, I would love to have you on the show, and we will address the week in wrestling, and I will bring up what I feel are the worst offenses that I have seen in that week of wrestling, and you will have an opportunity as the public defender in an episode of Law and Order, but a damn good one, an opportunity to defend the offense and get your man or woman a verdict of not guilty. How do you feel about this?
I like that. I like that idea. Yeah. I'm game for that. Yeah.
Listen, there's historical events with Earl, obviously, that I'm sure he hates having to relive every day of his life, but it's the most famous one, and it's not even his fault. That's the worst part about it, man.
Earl made a lot of money off of that years later, so I think he's okay with the t-shirts
he
sold.
Oh,
he did.
Hell yes, good for him.
He used to sell t-shirts.
I'm glad he turned it around.
There's still t-shirts I think you get online. They say damn right I did it. They're just white t-shirts.
No, they do not.
Stripes. Yeah, they say damn right I did it. And it's he made a lot of money off those, and it's pretty. He'll tell you, he'll go, yeah. Now granted, he realized later he might as well just own it, right? I mean, so yeah.
Good for him, man. You never know how something like that's going to hit somebody, because it was every arena he was in, every show, you would hear people use screwed bread.
Yeah. He can't go to Canada still to this t-shirts. Day. So,
that's like Brian Bosworth level stuff. Do you remember Brian Bosworth, the NFL player? Like,
yeah.
He would go to, he got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, and he made all these shirts that said like "Kill Brian Bosworth," and sold them in Denver to Denver fans. And like every city he would go to, he was so outspoken. People hated him so much. It was like MJF when MJF was like all full heel before he was the brochacho. And people hated him in every city they would go to there. And nobody knew he was the owner of them. Nobody knew he was the guy who designed the shirts. There was just a booth that would sell like, fuck you, Brian Bosworth, and like all this shit. And he was just reaping in all the money from it. And that's what Earl did, man. He flipped it up. I love that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
We have to I didn't know about that at all. Oh yeah, man. We have to get you a screw job so that you can flip it and make shirts and say, you're damn right I cheated.
Well, I mean, if it works out career wise, financially wise, sure. But we'll see.
Otherwise, my man Daniel Spencer calls it down the middle, people. All right, so Let me give you an example.
All right,
and I'm not going to name this referee because this is not an official referee court. All right, so we'll give him that piece. Now, people want to look up this referee and do their own research. That's fine. And the only information I'll give is it was on August 14th, Cody versus Finn. So now people should be able to figure that out. We will get into this very case in our episode of Thursday's Unsanctioned. You'll have to tune in later and wait for that. I would like to thank all of our listeners for your attention today. I'd like to thank our guest, Daniel Spencer. He's going to be with us on Unsanctioned Thursdays on behalf of the great Jackpot Jeff Dye, who, too bad, Jeff, you don't get to be a wrestler. Daniel says you'd be a better manager. Ha, ha, ha. I'm Freddie Prinze Jr., and this was Wrestling with Freddie. This has been a production of iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.